Okay, it's 6 o'clock on Tuesday, September 28th. I call the City of Twinsburg Finance Committee meeting to order. Roll call. Daisy Walker.
Present.
Scott Barr.
Here.
Sam Scaffidi's here, also present. Darren Labby. Councilman Bill Cleary. Our Finance Director, Sarah Bucci-Cross, our Mayor, Ted Yates, and our Law Director, Dave Maestros. And in the audience, we have our Capital Improvements Board. So, everybody's all right, first we have any audience participation. Anybody want to speak for?
There is none.
Brett, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to miss you. And we've got Brett as well. All right, approval of minutes from the August 24th Finance Committee meeting. Any questions, Mr. Barr or Mrs. Walker?
No questions at all.
No questions. I'd make a motion to approve as submitted.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Stop for our motion. Daisy Walker seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. No, that's how it goes. All right. Presentation of the recommended capital improvements items for 2022 appropriations year from the Capital Improvements Board. Who's going to speak? Brian, are you going to speak?
Oh, that's
Come on up.
That's trouble.
Hello, everyone.
Everybody's got their recommendations in front of them up here. So if you want to follow along, and if anybody has any questions, that's why they came, as well as that's why we have Fred here, because I know the board had some questions as well. So, because there were some negative votes, or no votes, not negative, but no votes, and so they may have some questions for them as well.
Sure.
So go ahead, Brian.
We just went through everything. We had everybody here participating, went through each one of the department heads, reviewed everything. Sarah did a really great job of explaining everything, going over the budget and what was requested. The majority of everything was approved. Were a couple of nays, but other than that, everything else was recommended.
And I have a few highlights here for you that I'll go through the next couple slides. And then we can review the items, and we did have a couple things that were voted down, and if you guys have any questions on those, we've got the full board here to explain anything that you guys need. So just a couple summary items.
Right, if you want to sit for a minute.
Sure.
Yeah. You're going to be throwing it back up.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. So just under 2.7 million in original requests were presented and reviewed by the Capital Improvement Board. They are recommending just over $2 million of those requests on the capital side of things to Finance Committee for consideration. The big difference this year in the capital side of things is that new police and fire levy fund that we have dedicated revenue for police and fire capital needs. So that was a big difference in what Capital Improvement Board has seen before, because we could consider safety services request separately from the rest of the city because they have that dedicated revenue there. On the infrastructure side of things, just over $4 million in original requests were presented and reviewed. We actually ended up recommending a little bit higher than that to finance for consideration because there is a piece of one of the projects that Amy, while she's out there doing it, she'd like to do a little extra resurfacing while she has that area torn up. So she asked for a little bit extra money, so that's why you see the little bit of increase on what we're recommending to finance versus what was presented. Okay, so this slide is hard to see, but it's just images of the tally sheet that you have in front of you there. So these are all the items that Capital Improvement Board reviewed and voted on through their meetings. And we can go through, if you'd like, all the individual requests, or I can just highlight some of the items that Capital Improvement Board voted down or had a couple no votes on, so that we can go through any questions you have on those items. Would that be okay?
You guys want to go through all the item by item, or just those that already have questions about it, or just the ones that they voted no on?
Well, I have a question on one. I don't know if it's I see Lib.
Let me see let me see
Okay.
if we're gonna go through all of them. What do you think, Mr. Brown? Karen, what do you think?
I don't think we need to go through all of them.
I don't think it's necessary to go through them line by line, especially when the overwhelming majority were a 5-0 vote.
Right.
I have faith in our CIB. If we want to discuss any of the dissenting votes or the no votes, I'm open to that.
Okay.
All right, well then, we'll just open it here, and if anybody has any questions.
Yeah.
Unless you wanna highlight some things first.
I'll just highlight a couple of the things. There's a couple things in red there. That cemetery software, the original request was $10,000. That was voted down because we're thinking that we might be able to handle that cemetery process just with maybe a fancy Excel sheet as opposed to a $10,000 program. They're at least going to, take a crack at that and see if we have something in-house that we can get the cemetery information together on. Another one I wanted to point out, on the next page that's there in red, under fire requests, they had a fire prevention vehicle that they had requested for $80,000 that I asked the Capital Improvement Board not to recommend to Finance Committee at this time. The reason being is that the fire department is currently figuring out the feasibility of going for 2 med units next year instead of 1. And if you have any questions about the med units themselves, we do have Fred Bissell here. He's on board with that plan to go for 2 instead of 1. We have that 1 med unit that keeps having the engine trouble, and then we also have another med unit that's just at end of life and needs to be replaced. So that's why that fire prevention vehicle is removed. We don't have the second med unit on the request list yet. Just because they're still going through the dollar amounts on what that would look like. If Finance Committee is okay with moving forward to look at 2 med units, then I would start getting financing together for what those payments would look like. And go out to the banks and see what kind of rate we can get, which the rates are still okay right now.
So we have 4 med units currently, okay, and 2 have problems, and it costs about $250, $275 to replace a med unit?
Roughly. For
Equipped?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm inclined to, that international, we keep having problems with that thing should probably go. Unfortunately, I know it's one of our newer units, but we seem to exhaust every possibility with that, and the same result over and over and over again. Fire prevention, although it would be nice for them to have their own vehicle, I'd rather see us with a med unit that services a community and runs an extensive number of hours every day based on our current call volume.
Med units probably cost $300 because right below that there's a lease for $60,000 a year, so.
For 5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah, financing plan. Yep.
I didn't read that far down the list.
Okay. The other thing under the fire department is I just wanted to clarify the $150,000 in station improvements that was pulled off the listing. We pulled it before it even came to Capital Improvement Board for a vote. We just talked about it here with Chief Morgan. So you won't see it on the listing, but that $150,000 was a placeholder for station improvements. What we have to do is look at Station 1 and see what we really need to do over there. So I talked to Chris Campbell and Chief Morgan about our next steps and having somebody walk through the building, see what we can take care of in-house and what are the improvements that we need to go outside and get an architecture or an engineering firm to look at and let us know what we need to do over there. So that's why that $150,000 was pulled off, because we need to look and see what we need to do first. And then come to you with a plan that's most likely a multi-year plan for what we need to do over there. Okay. And then the next one, we didn't really have anything that was too intense over on the enterprise funds, but if you have any questions, let me know. On the last page, I wanted to go over for a moment the capital infrastructure program. So this program is much larger than our last few years on our road program and our infrastructure. because we need to do some catch-up. We have been talking about that at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, that we needed to beef up our program a little bit. So it is spread out over multiple different funds. Most of those funds take care of themselves, with the exception of the water utility fund and the street construction maintenance repair fund. So those are the two funds that we'll see as we go on through the presentation. I'm going to ask that we can use some of the American Rescue Plan monies to pay for that water utility fund portion of that Dorridge project.
When
And
you
then-
said it doesn't pay, that it doesn't supply, so are these the water lines that we used to get the zero interest loans on from the state?
So yeah, the OPWC loans, yeah, we still can get those. We can use those for the sewer or the water portions.
Okay,
But
'cause that's what we did.
we can also
And
use
is this the last
the
piece of
American Rescue
the
Plan.
acres to get new
No.
water lines?
No, there's, part of Glenwood that needs to be done yet, and then I believe one more street.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's like, do you remember, I think there's like two.
I could look up Amy's plan. I'm sure she's got it on there. I don't know the road names off the top of my
I think
head.
there might be one more street in there that needs to be done.
Okay.
We tearing up Glenwood to do that, or?
That I don't know.
Right, so.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's only a
Difficult.
section, like on the bridge, I think, that I.
Yeah, it's
Just
not
a little
long.
section,
I
it's
remember
not
that.
a
Are we
big section
switched
at all.
again?
Thank you.
No problem. So then over on the SCMR side of things, it's really going to depend on when we look into that 2022 revenue planning and seeing where we are with folks coming back into the city to work and what our income tax collection base looks like. As of right now, in our outreach to the business community, the feedback that we're getting on the office folks coming back into the city to work is not favorable to the city at this time. We're still meeting with everybody. We don't have anything public that we can share just yet about specific companies, but it is a concern that we have been talking about all year, and I don't think that Twinsburg is unfortunately going to come out on the positive side of that return to work balance as far as income tax collection goes.
You know, Larry and I have been meeting with businesses that we've kind of targeted that have either a presence of contractors, subcontracted work, or the potential to have it. And just really having discussions on really how they're doing, how they're coming out of the workforce. So we've had a series of meetings on site as well as virtual setup that we've been attending. We had one today. So far, besides a couple of big ones, everyone's been impacted. And some of them we're looking at some of the subcontracted work that they have going out, trying to basically find a way to pull that from an income tax standpoint into the city. It may not be significant, but if we can lump some of them together, it may be something that we can benefit from. But yeah, it's a big concern that we've been, we're going to need to brace ourselves for, because it could have more of an impact than what we experienced in 2020.
Sarah, when do we anticipate, and we'll hold you to it, when do we anticipate understanding the full impact of that?
So on January 1st, the state law or change to the law goes into effect that we will stop receiving the withholding tax for folks who were based here in Twinsburg but who were not coming to work here in Twinsburg. So that stops January 1. They will start paying wherever it is that they are working. In addition to that, next year, if you were not coming into the city of Twinsburg to work, but Twinsburg tax was withheld for you because that's where you would have been coming if not for the pandemic, you will be able to file for a refund of those dollars. So we should start feeling the effect probably spring of next year, because in January we'll still be getting, December money. But so that's when we'll probably start seeing where things shake out.
So in January is when the law changes. But is it fair to say that we will not truly understand the full economic impact of this until after taxes are done in April?
Right, and that'll be kind of an odd year because it's not as though those refunds will happen every year.
Right.
So it's really gonna be a multi-year look
Right.
at how we're impacted by this.
Do we have an idea of the potential top-level impact that we would feel from people asking for those refunds if everybody did?
We do not have that just yet.
Okay.
Right now, all we really have is that RETA estimate, that for every 10% of people that stay working from home, we would lose 3% of our income tax. That was
Right.
just a very rough estimate they put together. So you could apply that to the number of people applying for refunds that didn't come into the city of Twinsburg to
Thank you.
work.
On the other side of that, what about the people who are now working at home in Twinsburg? Are we benefiting
There
from
will
that?
be some of that that will offset the feedback that we're getting from the local business community. It will not be able to offset, most likely, some of the losses that we're going to feel. Okay. So, all that to say, we're going to keep an eye on the SCMR fund. I think we should do as much as we can with that road program because we do truly need to do some catch up there. I just don't know what that picture is going to look like just yet. We need a little more time, which is why we're doing the temporary budget this year. So it gives us a little time at the first quarter of next year to see how the revenue side of things is playing out. And then, so back to our slides real quick. I do have it. One of the things we did differently at Capital Improvement Board this year was we broke down how we're paying for all these things, all the different funds that we use to pay for our capital infrastructure program. So we see our new police and fire levy fund down there as how we're paying for those requests. But I think it was helpful for Capital Improvement Board, and we were able to talk through how everything is paid for. So any questions on the individual items at this time that the Capital Improvement Board is recommending?
Finance or council, anybody?
Okay. So I just want to say a very big thank you to Capital Improvement Board. They all did a fantastic job, had wonderful questions. We have a lot of returning residents to this board, and it's a tough board. You meet very often in a short amount of time, and they make huge decisions, and they did a great job again.
Sarah, I just want to call Brian up again if he'd like to come up and see if they had anything that they wanted to highlight real quick. And
So-
then if you have any questions, give them a few minutes to talk to Fred.
You want to talk about the car, the vehicle?
So they're comfortable.
The structure?
Sure.
So the only things that we were actually looking at and that we kind of discussed a little bit was some of the vehicles that were coming in as far as trying to find out whether they were structurally or just cosmetically in need of replacement or repair. So I'm glad Fred's here because he could probably answer that for us. That's really about all we had as far as just kind of figuring out, a couple of those things. Did anybody else have any other concerns? No. I mean, other than that, we just wanted to look and see where we could save some money if it, for the trucks. If it was, what can we get out of them a little bit more, or is it necessarily to replace? So,
Fred, if you could come up and
Yeah.
answer that question for the board as well as council, if maybe that's in the back of your mind as well. But I just want the board to feel comfortable with the decision that they made, and they made their decisions, so
Okay.
clear that up, that'd be great.
On the trucks, I guess I can kind of run down through the list. You folks probably have that in front of you. The pickups involved that were discussed. We have a little bit of both. We had a couple of those that were. One was recently deemed unsafe and was pulled off the road. That actually was with the unit from Glen Eagles that had major structural rust on the frame, was perforated. Pulled that off the road immediately the day we saw it, and they're currently using one of our old trucks. The other pickups, the four-wheel drives for the service department. I guess the best way to describe it is we're getting close. The frames are still okay on the trucks, but they now have enough body rust and perforation that They're a little unsightly, but they're also have enough rust that if they were involved in an accident, I would say we're starting to lose some structural integrity with the vehicle as far as, what would happen to it in a crash. We don't have a lot of accidents, and usually they're low speed as far as with the service department vehicles, but that's something I still have to kind of look at and juggle. The biggest reason I wanted to replace those particular vehicles was because of the rust, which involves the rest of the mechanical systems of the vehicle. When we get to a point they're that age and that rusty, it just, if we have to replace one part underneath, it usually turns into 5 or 6 because everything, you change this line, by the time you touch it, you have to replace the next one because everything is that rusted. Most of those are, those 2 pickups are both 2008 units, so they're going to be 14 years old next spring. They've been in the salt for 14 years. You know what that could be like. So, and of course, I think I passed around some pictures that give you a pretty good idea of what those are like. So, the 5-ton truck that was on the list to be replaced goes back to '94. So we're talking about a pretty old truck. It's also a Ford, which has been, Ford got out of the heavy truck business back in, I think, '96. So a lot of parts are actually not available anymore. Sterling and Freightliner picked up, the Ford line was bought by Sterling, and then that was again bought by Freightliner. But to be honest, Freightliner doesn't really care about selling parts for old Ford trucks. They want to sell you a new Freightliner. So parts for those are getting obsolete. We actually have to scour wrecking yards and things like that across the country to find some of the parts for that truck anymore. So it just doesn't make sense to have as a fleet vehicle. And of course the body rust is again a big problem. I think there were pictures of that I showed, the rust above the windshield, the top of the cab. If the truck's out in the rain, the water comes in the cab. It's time to go. Did that address that?
Yeah, I appreciate it. All right, capital improvement board. Pat, you good? I know that was a big concern of yours, and Shelley, you had some concern.
The only thing I wanted to add, my background is automotive, and this gentleman here has done a good job with some of the other vehicles of keeping them on the road with the rust. I don't know if any of you have owned a pickup truck in Cleveland the last 10 years, or your neighbors, but if you look, all of them are full of rust. I mean, this is a tough climate. However, there is a difference between structural rust, which we discussed, and on a truck, the structural rust, imagine 2 railroad tracks, then everything sits on top of it. In the minute one of the railroad tracks starts to rust, you're through. But if the other stuff rusts, you generally can patch and repair it. Now, the thing that surprised me, I saw the pictures of the trucks. I don't know if you've had the photos, and they're pretty rusty. I mean, there's no doubt about it. However, if you looked at the mileage on the trucks, either we have too many trucks and they're underutilized, or maybe we should take the 2 best trucks, patch them up and keep running them, because the best vehicles that Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler make today are their pickup trucks. You're not going to see a Ford, GM, or Dodge vehicle on the road with 150,000 miles unless it's a truck. And our trucks have 50, 60,000 miles on them. And, they take a beating. The new ones immediately are going to be out there plowing, knocking the front ends around, getting salt and stuff on them. The beds are going to be getting all gooed up. I was just wondering if maybe we could take 2 of the best, continue to patch them up, which is not real expensive. It's a pain in the neck, I agree, and run them till they get how many miles or just fall right over in the street, and it might be more cost effective. These 4-wheel drive trucks set up to plow are almost $50,000. So to me, if we can wring everything out of them, and obviously on our new trucks, we're going to get them rust-proofed immediately and go through a continuous rust maintenance program. But it was just an idea that I had that, 50, 60,000 miles. Now, one of the discussions was the used car market's an all-time high, and that's true. And trucks are at all-time high, that's true. However, all-time high market for 10-year-old commercial used trucks, even with low mileage, is, people want the shiny wheels, they want the 4 doors, the back seats, the armrest, the leather. They don't want a commercial used truck. The only people that buy those are some landscapers and guys that don't come close to affording a new truck, and they don't pay the big buck for them. So I don't know, it's just a thought I thought I'd throw out to you guys.
Thanks, we appreciate that. Sure. We do, thank you.
Fred, do you anticipate any availability issues with new vehicles? I mean, I'm in the market for a truck at my job, and trying to find a work van or a work truck right now is an extremely difficult task.
Yeah. Honestly, right now, things don't look real bad.
Okay.
Fred, if you could go up to the mic, I'm sorry.
Didn't mean to make you get up again, I was just thinking.
No problem. Right now, things don't look real bad. From what I can see, I end up always ordering a vehicle as far as the pickups, just to get the right equipment.
Sure.
So they're spec'd the way we want them to get the best useful life out of the truck. So very seldom can I find that already on the lot in a spec truck. And so we're ordering. It doesn't seem like it's going to be real bad. We had some concerns. The one that I actually had ordered for this year was right in the middle of the COVID situation, and they at one point told me it was going to be 6 months late, and about a month later they called and said the truck was there and they couldn't believe it. So I actually got it on time.
Perfect.
So, as far as any of these others, I'm hopeful at this point that, we could possibly see a short delay, but not anticipating that it would be something that wouldn't be available.
From a pricing standpoint, it's state bid, so I know trucks are, way up there premium wise on the
Private
personal
market.
use private market, yeah.
Okay, anybody else up here with questions? Any final comments, Brian?
Excuse me, yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to council, thanks to Sam and Sarah for all the work you guys did to be able to get us all the information we needed to do. And I also just wanted to thank the board. There was a lot of great stuff, and thank the department heads especially too. They did a really great job presenting to us. There was a lot of good questions asked, a lot of great things in the process. So I just wanted to just say thanks to everybody and appreciate it.
Very good. And me too. I'd like to echo that. I want to thank Brian for taking the lead this year and being the chairman of the Capital Improvements Board. And the board, again, it basically hasn't changed since last year, except for Shelley Shipley. She was a great addition this year to the board. Had some great questions. Everybody did. These guys did a really good job by investigating and reading and looking at everything that was presented to them. Great questions. So again, thank you guys for all that you do. We really appreciate everything. I hope that next year we have the same luck with the same. What's that?
I'll be practicing the meeting all year.
Procedurally, yeah, so, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
I'll watch the video. I'll watch the video over and over.
I'm still learning.
He forgets to call the roll. He makes motions and he forgets to call
I
the
say
roll.
something, I look at Sam and like,
Brian, call the roll. But other than that, it's all good. It was a great group again, so thank you very much. We appreciate you guys.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, 2020 comprehensive annual financial report and single audit. Sarah. You folks are welcome to stay if you'd like, but if not, you're free to go.
We have another hour of finance if you.
Yeah, we got another hour, and then we got
Feel free.
another hour for council. And so we'll be
Thanks again, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for keeping my seat warm, Brian. Thank you, Fred.
Thanks, Fred.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. So the city's 2020 comprehensive annual financial report and single audit has been released by the state of Ohio. We got essentially what are clean opinions on both the city regular audit and the single audit portion, which is something that it's sort of an enhanced level of audit that happens when you spend so much in federal money. So last year we got the CARES Act grant. So we spent over $750,000 in federal funding. So they had to sort of look extra hard at our books for last year, in simple terms, to make sure that we spent that money the correct way, on the correct things. So we got clean opinions there. Also on the CIC, I don't think I have a clip of the CIC's opinion, but it's out there both on the auditor's website and on the city website. And one of the reports that the state does that I think is pretty nice are the financial health indicators. And you can see over the past few years, we've been trying to move in the right direction with our fund balances, especially the general fund. Last year, and you'll see in a couple slides here, we were able to take some of the relief funding that we received, combined with some of the cuts that we had last year, to build up our reserves a little bit, which I think will be very helpful over the next couple years as we feel the full effects of the pandemic and the return to work situation. Just a couple notes about our financial health indicators. The current year for indicators is 2020 because it goes along with the audit release. That black indicator is just something that doesn't apply to us because that is for general fund property tax revenue. We do not have general fund property tax revenue. Our property tax revenue for next year will be the police and fire levy and for police pensions and fire pensions. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you put this slide on the city website, please?
Sure. We have the whole report on the city website, and the 5-year history is towards the end of the report. We could certainly, maybe we could do like a newsletter article or something.
I really like that there's a lot more green now than there was 5 years ago.
Right.
And even somebody as dumb as I am can figure this out and what that means. So great job.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Green is good.
Green is good. So I didn't want to interrupt, but this is a great visual in my opinion.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, excellent point, and I like the positivity. The one yellow item on there, though, is our big concern, not to bring the room back down. But that yellow indicator is about income tax revenues. We were down in income tax revenues in 20. In my report tonight, we are up from 2020 as of this year. Again, it's because we're still getting that money in, even though folks aren't coming into work. But we're still below where we were in 2019. So we haven't caught up to pre-pandemic, and next year is looking to be a tough year for income tax revenues. So I don't expect that indicator to change in 2020. I'm not sure what the percentages that you have to hit for increase over the previous year. So it'll be better than 2020, so it might go green, might stay yellow. My guess is everybody's is gonna stay yellow for income tax revenues because the changes at the state level, everybody knows that's gonna be a
Just
risky
curious
area.
why in 2015 it was yellow. I mean, it was,
There might have been a dip in income tax revenues that year.
Our revenues took a pretty hard dip.
Oh yeah, that was when the 1/4% rolled off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We lost probably $4 or $5 million in revenue in
Yeah.
2015.
Okay.
You already took office.
4%,
Yeah.
13.5%.
okay.
And that's just a cautionary outlook, right?
Yeah, cautionary outlook at this time because it was just a 1-year
Gotcha. Okay.
decline in revenue. So any questions on the result of the audit or the financial health indicators that come out?
Looks great.
Well,
Okay.
I remember there was our self-appointed auditor used to put this up and talk about how we're just going on a death spiral. So it's really nice for those who've been around for a while to see it, no red, just one yellow, and it's the best it's been in 7 years.
I think Bill had a good recommendation to present this at one of the council meetings.
Is there a key that to say what 1, 2, 3?
Yes, there is.
It is?
You have the
Oh,
full
okay.
report there in front of you,
Yeah, that
Okay.
goes-
and the full report,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
available on our website and on the state auditor's website, the full report.
You just won't get all 5 years, this is just a.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just a clip so I could fit something on the slide, but you have the full report there.
One's more green.
Okay, any other questions on that section?
No, that's great.
Okay, next. American Rescue Plan.
Okay. So we've been talking a lot about the allowed uses for the American Rescue Plan money. So now tonight, we'll start talking about the potential uses of what we want to do with the money that we received, at least for the first half. So just as a refresher, the 4 main buckets that we've been talking about are revenue loss replacement, investments in infrastructure, COVID-19 mitigation / negative economic impact, and premium pay for essential workers. We did receive the first half of the money this year, and you will see that show up on your August reports that we have online now. And we received just under $1 million for that first half. And I just wanted to take a moment and go over the relief funding that we received last year, and what we used that money for. We received a little over $3 million by way of payouts or deferred payments. And the 2 chunks of money that we had to use last year, it was sort of a use it or lose it situation with that local coronavirus money and the Summit County money. If you'll remember, that Summit County program was specifically to help offset the cost of police fire dispatch wages. We also applied those same percentages to some of our local coronavirus money. So we ended up using just under 1.2 million out of the 1.6 that we received under those 2 programs for police, fire, and dispatch wage and pension costs. That was not premium pay, not hazard pay. That was just their regular pay that they were receiving. We were able to offset those costs, which really helped out the general fund at the end of the day, because we had those costs anyway. And then we spent $400 and some thousand there on, we did the bathroom upgrade, on the PPE, on the computer aided dispatch. So we had big backup dispatch, the CPR machines, all those things that we talked about all year last year. And I think we finished up a couple of those programs this year at the very beginning.
Sarah,
Yeah.
how many small business grants did we have?
Oh, I don't remember off the top of my head how many we issued. I think we did $40,000 in small business grants last year. I feel like it was probably 25.
It's like a dozen or at least yeah.
Or was it a dozen?
Sam, I remember.
I'd have to go back and
We
look.
did it twice.
We did do it
Well, the
twice, you're right.
CIC did a program and then the city did a
We
program.
had about 20 people. Got
Was it
money.
20?
Yeah, because we cut
Yeah.
it down towards the end. We were giving 500s
That's right.
and thousands and 1500s.
I can get that information to you. I don't remember off the top of my head how
Just
many
about anybody that
individual.
we felt was legitimate got money though. I mean,
Yeah. Okay. So then we wanted to go over some potential uses for how we want to use this first half of the money. We're looking at some COVID-19 mitigation uses, which would be a vaccine incentive program for inside the city for.
I guess what is our rule with city employees? If you want to get vaccinated, you get vaccinated, or how's that work?
So we have no mandated vaccination for city
You
employees.
have not mandated.
We have not mandated,
Okay. Are you allowed to know who's taken one and who hasn't?
we have, yeah, so, and we're gonna push that even more, so we asked for verification for all the vaccinated employees, or to let us know if you're not vaccinated, because what we've done is basically, any unvaccinated employee is still required to wear a mask. Now, we need to push harder to get all the affidavits of whether you're vaccinated or not. And we can do that, and I have no problem doing that, and we've been talking about doing that soon so that we know. Right now, based on the cards we've gotten in and the verification, we're only at like 28% of our city employee base that we know are vaccinated. So we need to find out what the real number is, and then I'd like to try to do an incentive to help get more of our city base. I mean, our city's now gone up to almost 73%. We're the highest in Summit County right now, but we need to get that into our employee base here.
Didn't all the safety forces, or that was offered that they could get the shot, you didn't have all the safety forces go over and get shots?
So no one in the city has been mandated, but they've all, of course, everyone has had ample opportunity to do it. Fire was probably first, and then it kind of rolled out age-wise throughout the city, and then the police got rolled into that. A lot of our police got vaccinated through the city, but there's still a number that has chosen not to be vaccinated, both in safety forces, service, and around the city.
I guess where I was going with that is, I thought it was free to get a vaccination. I see signs at Giant Eagle and.
Oh, it's free.
I mean, so were we talking about allocating money to?
Yeah, it'll be on the next slide.
Oh,
It's incentive.
It's
To motivate
incentive.
people,
We
It's-
give you money?
to motivate people to get vaccinated. Yeah,
Okay, my mistake, I didn't understand, I missed the concept.
yeah.
And it's would be an entirely voluntary program if
How much
finance
do you think you wanna
committee.
pay to get somebody to get a shot? Just curious.
We'll get to the next
We'll get
page
there.
and we'll talk about it.
Yeah. And we're looking at that as part of our wellness program, so it would be, part of that program.
So so the other,
Sarah,
yep,
Circling back to Mrs. Walker's question, looks like we had 24 applicants for the COVID small business. As 18, it appears, received a total of $40,000.
okay. So I wasn't too far off.
No, it was,
Yeah.
thank you, Mrs. Collins, for your email.
So we're in the middle.
December
Yeah.
3rd of last year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So the other piece of the COVID-19 mitigation bucket is an outreach to the community for vaccines. We can have more discussion on what that program would look like, but I just have on the presentation to set a certain amount of money aside for that outreach, whatever it may look like. The next one up is that hazard or premium pay for eligible full-time employees. We'll get into that when we get to that slide. We already talked about the water utility infrastructure for the Dorridge project, and then also the fourth bucket would be the revenue replacement.
And Sarah, just so I'm clear, there is a bucket of money that these potentially 5 things can be used for.
Right, there's 4 buckets, if you will, that are allowed uses for the American Rescue Plan, and we're trying to hit each of the 4.
Okay, and if we, just so I'm clear, if we choose not to use it in one, we can use it in another.
Right,
Thank you.
yep. Okay, all right, so the vaccine incentive and the community outreach, right now I have $50,000 each slated for those 2 programs. We were looking at a $250 per employee vaccine incentive, entirely voluntary program. We could possibly run it in conjunction with the wellness incentive. We're looking into that. I'm estimating, I'm using round numbers here of 175 full-timers and 25 part-time employees. This is a program that we'd run next year in the first quarter. If we had 100% participation rate, that's about $50,000. I threw up 75% participation because I think that's a good goal to achieve. That would match up with the community, and that would cost us $37,500. Yeah.
I'm sorry, are you done?
No, go ahead.
My concern with this is if we are incenting people to do this, are we penalizing people that choose not to do
They have an opportunity to do it if they
it?
want to.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree, and I guess my response to that would be, everybody has had a chance to get this vaccine for at this point over a year.
I look at it this way, we're trying to tip the scale, you know, the ones that maybe are on the fence, this might,
I don't think it's over a year.
Oh, okay, 9 months, I got mine in April, and I know I was late,
I
so,
got mine in March.
okay, 9 months.
No, I think, I mean,
6, whatever.
I mean, it's really going to be interesting to see where, you know, there's legislation that's, that not if we ever saw if that came through, that was going to be in the state today passed, that would not allow public employers to mandate vaccinations. However, President Biden is pushing really hard to make any business mandate vaccinations if it's over 100 employees. So we don't know where that's going to play out. But I've taken a position where I don't want to mandate vaccinations. However, I don't have an issue incentivizing people to get vaccinated. So, I mean, I think that's where, are we penalizing those that choose not to? I guess if you look at it one way, they're not going to get the money. But I think, I believe in the vaccination. I think it's helping. I think as we get more and more people vaccinated, it gets us toward that herd immunity. And, you know, I don't have an issue with trying to incentivize people, especially in the wellness program. I mean, we incentivize people in a wellness program to exercise and eat right and do right things, and they get paid money. They can choose to do it or not to do it. To me, the vaccination is just one piece of that
Well,
wellness.
if you want to talk about penalization, you know, it's like, because those that aren't vaccinated have to wear a mask. So is that a penalty? You
And
know
just
what I'm
so,
saying?
and just so I'm clear,
Yeah.
I'm
mean,
not
you could-
against the vaccination, but I agree
Put
with
that
you
onto everybody.
wholeheartedly. I agree.
I'm not against vaccination, but I think I am against paying people to get the vaccine. I'm struggling with that. They have a choice to make. I don't mind tying it to the wellness program, but I think I'm not crazy about.
But I mean, I think it's
just
the
saying
same,
you're
to
gonna
me, it's
get
the
paid
same
to
kind
get
of
a
choice of
vaccine.
whether someone wants to stay physically fit and overall well-being. They can choose to do it or they can choose not to do it. I mean, why is this any different than that? They get $300 for being part of the wellness program and staying active, staying fit, getting a physical every year. Why is that different than a vaccination?
I think the way to look at this is to parallel it to the fitness wellness program. I have a huge issue with mandates, and I'm glad to hear that it's not something that you're pursuing. Although I am vaccinated and have had COVID, my case was extremely short-lived and very mild as a result. Everybody has the right to do what they want to do. I would not force that opinion on anybody. I think that one of the things to keep in mind in some respects, and I'm not an epidemiologist, but if you don't want to maintain a certain level of physical fitness, that's pretty much on you. If you elect not to get vaccinated, I think it's scientifically proven you're more likely to spread that to your coworkers, almost in a vis-a-vis like a secondhand smoke type of thing, which is, I believe, how we did away with smoking in bars and restaurants and everything in Ohio in the first place. It was your right to smoke, it just not, you know, I shouldn't have to breathe it in. So I guess I'm not opposed to trying to incentivize this as a component or adjunct of the wellness program. Again, provided it's not a mandate or anything like that, but that's where I stand.
What about the ones who have health issues? If you have a bad heart or the doctor says, you know, you have this illness and you cannot get the shot, are we going to penalize that person even though they would if they were healthy enough? You know, how do we,
Yeah, I'm not sure I see it as a penalty because.
or an
they still have a right to
incentive?
not hit it. If we told them they couldn't.
Yeah, but if their doctor tells them not to.
Or, you know, they had
No.
to sit in some area because they don't.
Yeah, that is a relative, I would think, and again, I would think that number, which you're absolutely right, that number, I think, is relatively small in terms of the population. That being said, they are not eligible for this incentive. So,
I just don't know of anyone, I've not met anyone that said, I have a health issue and my doctor won't let me get it.
I have a friend,
So,
a couple of them. told
yeah,
me
so I
they-
haven't run into
they
that, but I mean, we definitely haven't had, I don't think, approach Michael and say that that's an issue.
I guess I also, and I might be wrong, I don't think at this point, anybody that's going to get it hasn't gotten it. And I don't think $250 or $500, whatever it is, I don't think it's gonna, again, that's my feeling.
And I just think it might make us.
And you probably could be right, but I look at it this way, so it's goodwill on our part. And if they don't, and the money's still there, we take it back when it's over. You know, when the program ends, we can reallocate those funds.
I have a problem with all the money going out with the revenue replacement here. That is the big unknown. And just, hey, I'm not for stimulus checks either. I'm looking at debt and I'm looking at spending money, and I think we need to be a little more conservative over here, and I just don't agree with the incentives. How about you don't get COVID? You get a cold instead. That's incentive enough for how many, 73% of Twinsburgians to get the vaccine. I don't see what the...
And that's probably my concern too, is most of the community has 75% or 73% have been vaccinated voluntarily. And now we're going to put out there that as a city, we're going to pay employees, is that 25% of them are vaccinated right now to get this. And I'm not sure if I'm not crazy about the message.
Right now, the numbers I have are that, is that 28% are vaccinated. So we have, so there's 72%. As far as we know, we don't know whether they're vaccinated or they're unvaccinated. That's a big number in our employee base.
It is.
You know, we had COVID spread through our police department and knock out a whole shift. Okay, and I just, to me, I don't know from a public policy standpoint, I don't see this as being a bad program.
I'm okay tying it to the health program. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with because that is consistent with other things that we have done within that program.
Is there slated this year for a wellness incentive?
Currently not.
There's currently no wellness incentive for this year.
No, there is.
There is.
We have a wellness program here.
Mm-hmm.
You can earn up to $300 that gets paid into your HSA or deducted off of your PPO premium. So this would be a new component to the wellness program going into next year.
A new component or additional money to it?
Additional money.
See, I have a problem with that, I think.
Who's on the finance committee?
I
Who is?
What's that? Sam
Who's on the
Dolan.
finance?
Sam Scott. Sorry.
So we're looking for a recommendation, Mr. Scafidi?
Well, I don't think we're done yet. We're still gonna-
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No, but
Keep going.
we'll keep going through the other thoughts on the use of this year's money. So the other side of the COVID-19 mitigation bucket, if you will, was $50,000 set aside for community outreach for vaccines. We're not sure exactly what that would look like just yet, if we would be talking about a mailer to the community or, some sort of event, or what that might look like, but setting aside a piece of money to do community outreach on vaccines.
See, on this one, I'm much more likely to agree with it in-house than I am the community outreach thing. I mean, that's a Summit County Health issue for $50,000.
Plus,
I'm with you on this.
73% are vaccinated.
Right,
would-
So
why
you're
would we
talking
jump?
about a small percentage.
27% of the community for 50.
Unless there was one certain area or,
I'd probably be inclined to put that into revenue replacement or something along those lines in the interest of.
Put it in the bank.
Yeah. Yeah, so
something.
that slide, those two pieces together would most likely have a cost to the city of less than $100,000, which is 10% of 1/2 of the ARPA money that we are receiving. So I think we can move on and talk about the bigger pieces of the money, and we can circle back to those incentive programs for the vaccines. So hazard pay or premium pay, the one piece of feedback as we went through all the discussions of the American Rescue Plan money that we were getting in, the one ask that I received from council was to get money back out to the employees. So you saw the first piece of that in that vaccine incentive. So this would be the second piece of that, to get a piece of that money to the employees. What I did was I said, okay, in this first half of money, you know, we're getting just under $1 million. And if we're looking at those 4 buckets, if we try to do a little bit in each one, and I said, here's how many full-time employees we have, and came up with that 1250 number, which keeps us around, you know, under 25% of just this year's money. Next year's money, you know, I think we're going to have to hold off because depending on what our revenue situation looks like, we might be in a place where we want to talk about a much higher percentage going to revenue replacement at that time when we have more information next summer. So we're looking at $1,250 per full-time employee, and we sort of needed to pick, draw a line in the sand of who would be eligible as far as those full-time employees. So we looked at November 1st of 2021 as if you're a full-time employee in good standing, you would be eligible for that hazard/premium pay. And we had a lot of discussion about how to present this to you all, and I think we can have more discussion on it, but we talked a lot about, you know, who were those people that were the most affected by the pandemic, you know, fire, police, wastewater, and then as we started adding in, service workers were out there picking up folks' trash, custodians were out there cleaning the restrooms and doing all those things, and by the time you really looked at the number of city employees who were on the front lines, if you will, you were down to really just a handful of folks that would not be eligible. And we didn't want to just leave a few folks out because those folks that are left really were doing more with less, because some of those departments were the hardest hit in last year's layoffs. And also really had to learn how to go from working in one way every day to going remote, you know, within 48 hours and still being able to operate. So that's kind of how we came to the decision of making this an across-the-board premium pay for eligible full-time employees. Now, in order to do that, we would run this program just as a regular city expense, use the ARPA money for revenue replacement, but we still wanted to be able to get the money out to the employees.
So is this in addition to the $250 we were gonna give them for getting a shot?
Yeah.
Right. This is a totally separate bucket, the premium pay for employees. And this was the one item that I got a request from council to use money for.
That's what I said.
Our council? I mean, and maybe it was before I was here, but I don't remember the discussions.
I brought it up
No.
originally, but I don't know that everybody brought it up. And I think it was in a finance committee meeting. I don't know that the other members joined in with that.
I don't think anyone said no at the time, but it was the one item that was specifically asked for us to bring forward to you guys as a use of this first half of money. So that's where this came from.
Sarah, does all of this money, not just this slide, but this bucket, does it all need to be spent in 2021?
No, what we're looking at here.
2022 rather, I'm sorry.
Right, no, we don't have to spend all of this money in any certain time frame.
Okay, is there,
And I don't have a payout date for this.
okay, but is this money is it a scenario where we have to use it by a certain time or it goes away, or will we get this money and it's just sitting there waiting to be spent?
We do have to use the American Rescue Plan Act money by a certain time. So we did it in 2021, so it's 2024 is when we have to have the money either, designated by, and then you have a couple years to actually cut the checks, like say the water, the next slide I think is the water utility piece. If it takes us a couple years to get that project done, that's okay. because we have that money set aside for that project, and if we don't cut the check till 2023, that's fine.
Thank you.
I really don't like the incentive for people to get the shot at this point, because I think it's over. As far as those people that were gonna get a shot, probably already got it, and I don't really think that we need to pay
You talking about
anybody
public?
that.
Or you
No,
talking
I'm
about
not, I'm in the employee version.
Yeah.
I don't wanna do an outreach program, and that number's really high. Right now, we're looking at 300,000 out of the million tied up in nothing new, nothing that we're getting. There's no, I mean, I'd rather put the money into the Dorridge project, because I know I'm gonna have that for a while. And I'd rather hold on to it for the revenue replacement, because I have no idea what's going on tomorrow, next year, before I, you know, before I would commit it's almost 300, because you have 50, I think you were talking about 50 for here, so there's 100, that's 318.
I don't think that 50 community outreach is gonna make it out of finance.
Okay, so 50 for just the shots, you're still at,
268.
yeah, you know,
The issue with the hazard pay, to me, is entirely less controversial.
Oh, I think it's more controversial.
Okay.
And I'm just looking at from, say people in my ward who went to work all the time, who was there all the time, who did that all the time. I mean, and just, I like to call it work ethic. You show up, you do your job, and I don't know. If it was hazard pay for those who were affected in a way, like if the police were working X amount or the fire department were working X amount because of lack of people, and there was or a bonus for them for that, if we could identify certain people, but an across the board thing, I do have an issue with. I do.
Well, again, I mean, we gutted engineering, and gutted engineering.
Yes.
It's pretty much an employee's market right now. Anybody who wants to go find a job better than one they have here can probably leave and go do it in a pretty short order. To me, this is a maybe the proverbial day late and dollar short, but way to thank those individuals that have committed themselves to the betterment of the city. I'm right there with you. I got up, went to work every day. I don't qualify for this or I don't qualify for that. There was no stimulus. There was no whatever. I've got guys in people's houses. I get that. And we're having a heck of a time finding employees. I got to do everything I can to retain my people.
would you feel insulted if it was only $500 per employee?
Not necessarily. We can certainly discuss the particulars of it, but I think that I will tell you, when you have premier police and fire departments in Northeast Ohio that have resorted to lateral transfers of employees because they can't find anybody that wants to be a cop or anybody that wants to be a firefighter or anybody that wants to be a service worker, we're nothing without our people here. So for me, we can discuss the amount, but I think the message, it's not the content as much as it's the behavior that.
I had 20 police officers pay over $100,000 last year. I mean, it's not like we're cutting people short, in my opinion.
That's
right. You're right. We're not. But the thing is that, and I'm going to extend it out to the service workers and the wastewater workers who went to work, had to go to work every day. And not only did they have to go to work and sit into an office that everybody's sanitized, they're working in wastewater. Everything that people flush in this town goes past those people. And they're, through a pandemic, they're out there and they're continuing to process all of our solid waste and everything else that goes on in the community. Same thing with our service department. I mean, they continue to go out there and pick up our leaves on our branches and plow our streets. And the guys are switching trucks because this shift's on and that one's off. And you try to clean everything
I wouldn't say that's
the same. They didn't have that sterile thing like I had. Okay, I worked for a city too, but you know, they had, our buildings were sterilized all the time, but, you know, we did the trucks as much as we could, and we worked with those guys, but, I mean, I think that they were in a little different situation
Our
than
service
just
workers
anybody
today.
going, yeah, the service
They-
workers,
yeah, I
wastewater
think
workers,
they do.
police and
Wastewater.
fire.
They want
You know, I think that they all,
Mhm.
yeah, you're right, Karen, you know, we all went to work, we had to do what we had to do, but we weren't working in that same atmosphere and touching things that people put out on their tree lawn and we gotta go pick it up, or, you know, after they touched it, when nobody was touching anything, everybody's working with rubber gloves. Well, you can't do that when you're picking up branches or leaves.
Our service guys, Sam, just to piggyback on that, I mean, they came over and were sanitizing all the vehicles in the city.
Right.
We had
They were doing it.
part-time service guys that all they did was clean bathrooms, every hour on the hour. Clean all of our parks and our rec bathrooms. When you look at, you know, we were working at probably half the staff at the fitness center, every single person that, I don't care what your title was there, in the morning, and when we closed down at 1 o'clock, and at the end of the day, they grabbed Clorox 360 machines and wipes, and they spent all day wiping down what the general public was coming in there and touching and messing
That
up.
was
So, I
our
mean,
service department? who's doing
no,
it?
that's
No, they
just,
said the fitness center.
that's a receptionist at the fitness center at lunchtime when they closed down, grabbed a bottle, put gloves on, and started wiping stuff down. You know, Tyler, when he was here, shut down at 1 o'clock, started grabbing a 360 machine and spraying equipment. I mean, they did beyond their job scope to protect the public.
But I
and
think we all
protect
did
their-
at
Right,
all
right.
jobs.
And what, it can, at
I
Karen's
understand that, but
point,
when
you're
ARPA
right.
comes out and specifically identifies hazard pay for the public sector, if we're giving you this money, I think that creates really an obligation for us to at least take a look at it, okay?
Is there any way we could revisit it after we find out the impact of the tax thing in the middle of the summer, or
Yeah, I mean, we'll have more information next summer, but,
do you think it's
we,
more of
this
a
is gonna
timely
be-
thing? You know, the hazard pay thing now versus later?
We do it in phases. And you can't give a bonus in the city, so we basically have to open this up to everybody that was this 175 plus the 25.
There's no
Yeah.
bonuses in the city, right?
Right, so you gotta make it available to all.
Of our neighboring communities, do you have any numbers on who is doing this?
So,
Are most, all,
the-
none? I
the
mean,
range is wide because it is up to, this premium pay bucket is up to $25,000 per employee. I think it was a $13 an hour limit, up to $25,000 per person. So, you know, we've seen people that are getting $13,000. We've seen people getting $500. And I think that,
Who's given
you know,
$13,000
Cuyahoga County.
for
corrections
every
officers.
employee? Just for
Corrections.
I'm not sure who else. We know
That's
corrections officers.
Okay.
So did most of the communities identify different levels, or did they blanket it across the board? Do you know?
So the different communities, everybody's doing something different right now. We can look at more on what other people are doing. We were just trying to present something that might work for us here at City of Twinsburg.
Oh, all right, okay. I just wanna make sure.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on my position. I do think that we should give some of this money back to the employees. I do.
The amount could be low.
The amount.
I agree with that.
But I do think, and furthermore, I would be in favor of giving it to all full-time employees. And I understand that some may
I don't
quote
think you have an
deserve it more, but I would, if I'm just kind of going through the people in my mind or the positions that we have, I think it would be very few when, once you took out police, fire, service, it would be very few left over, and I would not be comfortable not giving it to those people.
And non-union
Right.
argument.
And then again, I mean, even our department heads, again, building and engineering and everything else, I mean, what they're doing right now with shoestring staff.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely stepped up.
And that's one of those reasons that I talked about last year's relief funding that we received, that little bit over $3 million number, and between the two phases of the ARPA payouts, that's another just under $2 million. So when you're talking about $5 million and trying to come up with a number of what we think would be appropriate for this bucket to give something back to the employees for their service over the pandemic, when you're looking at that $250,000 number versus the $5 million in relief that the city has received, I'm not sure that I would think that that was an unreasonable amount for a program like that for premium pay for the employees.
I think that I think the employees are. I mean, if I had $1 billion, I think they'd be worth it. I mean, but I think the scary part is the future, like what we know is coming ahead.
Absolutely, and that's why.
It's not that I don't.
Yeah, I think
for
for this year's amount of money that we received, I do think it's important to hit each of those 4 buckets that we're looking at on those allowed uses. But I do think next year we might be in a position to have the bulk of it go for revenue replacement.
Okay, anybody else, because we still have 2 buckets to look at.
Yeah, sorry, I probably should come up with a.
All 4 buckets still?
I do think I'm still in favor of, for this year's money, looking at all 4 options. You know, I still think that the COVID-19 or the negative, impact to the economy is still important. The premium pay, I believe, is important. The infrastructure is important, and revenue replacement. So
There's 5 here. That's where.
Well, but 2 are
these the same?
2 are COVID-19 mitigation bucket. The shot bucket. Yeah.
All right, so you want to go into water?
Yeah, so the water utility infrastructure, that Dorridge project, it's a big project. It's something that I think we're pretty much committed to at this point as a city. And I think that using a piece of that money towards that project is an appropriate thing to do.
Agree. Yeah, I agree.
I have a problem with that.
That one was a good
Do
one.
not have a problem with that.
Oh, sorry, I hadn't flipped the slide. So then the last bucket is the revenue replacement. So we talked about, the COVID-19 mitigation one, the infrastructure one. So the difference between those 2 is the $500,000. We're looking at that hazard pay, premium pay option, but we would run our own city program. So that $500,000 would go for revenue replacement, but that would allow us some flexibility to run whatever that hazard premium pay program looks like. When we get that decided, that's how we would run it, or would be my suggestion. And I'm afraid of this slide, but.
Is there any other questions? Sarah?
So we just got the capital part of the budget done. What's the deadline to make a decision on this? December, or what are we doing with this?
When do you need?
I mean, they're gonna give you a recommendation sometime after it gets discussed further, and then it goes to all council. But if it gets put into a budget, I'd like to see it addressed separately from a budget.
Okay, so the temporary budget I would be bringing forth in November. So
Right.
I would probably need to know what our budget needs to look like under the American Rescue Plan Fund so that I can have that budget, that temporary budget together for you in
By the end of
November.
October.
At the October Finance Committee meeting, I would probably need some feedback from Finance on what we want to move forward with so that I can put those budget line items in under the American Rescue Plan Fund, which we just set up, I think, last meeting.
Yeah. Going back to the capital improvement projects
Yes.
chart. Med Unit 1 of 5 lease, 60 million.
Yes.
We use the 50 from community outreach to fund the first year of Med Unit 2, year 1 of 5 lease.
Yeah, we can do that.
That sounds like a finance committee question.
We need to try, I mean, if we're gonna need to replace that other unit, again, I think I have faith and confidence that the Summit County Health Department has done a yeoman's job of getting the word out. I
We could,
rather see us put it
Sounds like a good idea.
in.
I would rather you
And I mean, I know that is an unexpected expense, and it was
Yeah.
an ask that you and Mr. Stefano made earlier about considering that for
right.
replacing
And
that other unit.
what we would probably do is that $50,000, we would just slate it under revenue replacement.
Okay.
And then that would go into the general fund and we could
You
use
do
that
a
to.
dedicated capital for police and fire now also.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And the
I'm also
dedicated
thinking
police and
to-
fire
to
capital would take
Ms.
care
Labby's
of.
point, I'm also thinking about income tax revenues coming in.
No,
over
I think
the-
absolutely. I think these are just discussion points. I think in terms of I guess where I stand on these four buckets, I mean, I have pretty strong opinions on the hazard pay and then the infrastructure. Those are the two. The others, coming up with some programs that can help from a public policy standpoint, both in our community and well as our employee base, I think has merit. But again, those are the two that I'm probably stronger opinionated on than the first.
I kind of like Bill's idea with, do one and maybe another in July or something for the hazard pay. I don't like the incentive for vaccine at all. I don't like the outreach at all. But I do recognize that there were a lot of city workers, a lot, who were on the front lines. And I don't want to take anything away from them. However, if we could give one and then relook at it and then give another, I think I would be more comfortable with that after we know a little bit of what's coming down with the revenue replacement. That's where I stand on that.
Sounds like a good idea.
Like I said, there were no dates on that hazard premium pay program, so if it was broken up or phased in, we don't
Any
have
kind of
anything
bonus,
slated.
I'm not going to call it a bonus, and any kind of pay like that is nice just before Christmas, okay? Just saying.
Well,
And
now,
then again,
my payroll person will have a heart attack.
I'm not just saying, I mean, it's just
If we try
nice
to
to
do it
have
before
it
holiday.
before the holidays and
Yeah.
then maybe revisit it after we know what the and see if there's, we could issue another and kind of explain it that way. It's kind of based on what we can afford right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So, what I could do is take that feedback and come back for the October Finance Committee meeting with maybe a couple tweaked ideas, and then Finance Committee, I would ask you at that time to, recommend that forth to the budget for the American Rescue Plan Fund. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay.
He says it sounds good.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about the shot program, vaccine program.
Oh, okay.
That's only for new vaccines, not people that have gotten vaccines.
I don't have any real hard details on that program.
$2,000 came from
That was everybody.
175 full-time employees, and then 25 after that, and you divide that through, that's where you.
Yeah,
get
I had it. I had it estimated for everyone,
employee-
but that doesn't have to stay that way.
The employee vaccine proposal would include all that have gotten vaccinated and all that are going to get vaccinated. Then the community outreach, I think was completely different.
So we got it 2 months ago. So we're not full-time employees, it's only the 25% part-time.
No, I'm opposed. We talk about that.
Right. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's 50 grand. Everybody got a check there?
Okay. So that's it, that's all you got from me now? Anybody have any final questions or comments? Either on the board or not on the finance. Okay. No miscellaneous, I assume. Next meeting is October 26th, 6 o'clock, Sarah, is that good?
I think
I
so.
guess we'll roll it.
Maybe 5:30. Because we have in the October Finance Committee meeting, we also have the Ohio Online Checkbook folks coming.
Okay.
So we might need 5:30 if
Yeah.
we're gonna have more discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then, hearing nothing else, Finance Committee meeting is adjourned, and we will convene the, August meeting at
all right.
7 o'clock. Anybody wishing